It's getting dark, my child. Tell them I tried.
No, Father. Look at me. Stay with me.
The night Ada agreed to sell one night of her life to a rich man. Her father stopped breathing on the floor. She held his head and shouted his name while her small house shook with fear. The village nurse said the sickness was eating his heart slowly. The nurse said medicine from the big city could help, but the cost was like asking a poor bird to buy the sky. Ada looked at her father's weak face and knew that love sometimes pushes a person into dark roads. Ada was a young woman who sold fried bean cakes in the morning market. People knew her as quiet, but when she spoke, her words were straight, like a spear. Her father, Baba Tade, was once a strong farmer who could carry 2 yam baskets at once. Now, he could not stand without shaking. Each cough from him sounded like a drum beating bad news. One afternoon, the nurse came again and spoke with a hard voice. She said Baba Tade must go to a hospital in Lagos within 3 days. She said the treatment cost more money than Ada had ever seen. Ada counted her coins and felt shame grow in her chest. She said, "Nurse, even if I sell my house, the money will still laugh at me." That evening, Ada sat beside her father and fed him water slowly. Baba Tade tried to smile, but his lips trembled like dry leaves. He said, "My child, do not sell your future because of an old man like me." Ada held his hand tight and said nothing. Inside her heart, she was fighting a war that nobody could see. The next morning, a strange rumor entered the market like a fast wind. Women whispered that a very rich man had arrived in the nearby city. They said the man was called Mr. Ben, a young billionaire who owned companies and big buildings. They said he was searching for a woman to spend one night talking with him in his grand hotel. They said he would pay a large sum of money, enough to change a poor life forever. At first, Ada laughed when she heard it. She told the women that such a story sounded foolish. But when she returned home and saw her father coughing blood into a cloth, the laughter died. Her heart began to count the days again. One night could bring the money that could bring the medicine. That evening, her friend Saud came to visit. Saud was bold and spoke quickly like a talking drum. She told Ada that the rumor was true. She said the billionaire's people had placed a notice in the city office, asking for a woman who was honest and strong in spirit. Ada shook her head and said, "Why will a man with so much money want such a strange thing?" Saud shrugged and said rich people often carry lonely hearts. She said the man promised respect and safety, only conversation through the night. She said the payment was enough to buy a small street of houses. Ada walked outside and stood under the fading sun. She thought about the difference between her world and the billionaire's world. In her world, people fought daily for rice and medicine. In his world, money moved like water in a river. She wondered why the river never visited the dry land. Later that night, Baba Tade woke and saw worry on his daughter's face. He asked her what trouble was sitting on her mind. Ada hesitated, then told him about the rumor in the market. Baba Tade struggled to sit up when he heard it. He said with anger, "My daughter will not sell even 1 hour of her life because of me." Ada tried to calm him, but he spoke again with shaking breath. He said a father must protect the honor of his child. He said sickness should not turn a man into a thief of his own family's future. Ada knelt beside him and spoke slowly. She said, "Baba, the elders say when fire enters the house, the owner uses any water he finds." She said she was not afraid to sacrifice comfort if it meant saving him. Her father turned his face away, and tears moved down his cheeks. The next day, Ada traveled to the city office to confirm the story. The building was tall and cold, very different from the dusty village houses. A man in a fine suit asked her many questions about her life. He wrote notes carefully while watching her eyes. Finally, the man nodded and said she had the honest spirit their employer wanted. He explained that Mr. Ben would meet her in his hotel after 2 nights. He repeated that the meeting was only for conversation and company. Then he showed her the payment written on a paper. Ada's legs nearly failed when she saw the number. It was enough to pay the hospital, buy medicine, and still keep food in the house for years. She felt joy and fear fighting inside her chest. Money was now standing at her door, but the door felt heavy to open. She returned home in silence, and sat beside her father again. Baba Taid listened carefully while she explained everything. He looked weak, yet his eyes were burning with pain. He said again that he would rather die than see her do this. Ada answered him with a firm voice. She said a child must sometimes carry the burden of the family. She said the world had placed them in a corner where pride could not buy medicine. Her father closed his eyes because he had no strength left to argue. On the evening before the meeting, Ada prepared to leave for the city. She packed only a simple dress and a small cloth bag. Saad hugged her and promised to watch over Baba Taid while she was gone. The road to the city felt longer than it ever had before. Inside her mind, many voices were arguing loudly. One voice said she was doing the right thing for her father. Another voice whispered that the rich man's world was full of unknown traps. Ada walked forward anyway, because love often walks where fear is standing. When she reached the great hotel, the guards opened the shining doors slowly. She stepped inside and saw floors that looked like mirrors. A woman led her to a quiet room and said the billionaire would arrive soon. Ada sat alone and felt the weight of her choice pressing on her chest. Then the door opened and the man called Mr. Ben walked in quietly. He looked young, calm, and very different from the proud rich men she had imagined. He studied her face carefully, as if he was searching for something hidden. Ada lifted her head and waited for him to speak first. Mr. Ben finally said, "Ada, before this night begins, there is a truth you must hear." His voice was serious, almost troubled. Ada felt a cold warning pass through her heart. She suddenly wondered if this night would save her father or pull her into a destiny she never expected. And as the silence between them grew heavy, Ada asked herself one frightening question. What secret could a billionaire carry that required buying one night from a poor woman like her? Ada looked at the billionaire with steady eyes, though her heart was beating like a drum in a village festival. Mr. Ben stood near the table and spoke slowly as if each word carried weight. He said, "You came here thinking I bought one night of your time." He paused and shook his head. "10 are dead. But the truth is that I did not bring you here for pleasure or comfort." Ada did not answer quickly, because she was trying to understand his voice. It was not the voice of a proud rich man who believed money could control people. Instead, it sounded like a man carrying a quiet burden. She folded her hands and said calmly, "Then speak the truth clearly." Her voice was soft but strong. Mr. Ben walked to the window and looked down at the bright city lights. He said rich people were often surrounded by many things, but still lived in deep loneliness. He explained that money had brought him power but had taken away trust. Many people came close to him only because they wanted a piece of his wealth. Ada listened carefully and did not interrupt him. She had seen that kind of truth in smaller ways before. Even in her village, when someone suddenly gained money, many new friends appeared like ants around sugar. She nodded slowly because his words sounded honest. Mr. Ben turned back toward her and said something unexpected. He said his company workers had searched many villages before choosing her name. They did not pick her for beauty or fashion. They chose her because people spoke of her loyalty to her father and her honesty in the market. Ada felt surprise move through her body. She said, "You mean you studied my life before asking me here?" Mr. Ben nodded without shame. He said he needed someone whose heart was strong and clean. Ada frowned because the matter still made little sense. She said, "A rich man does not spend such money just to talk about honesty." Her words were direct and brave. Mr. Ben smiled slightly because he liked her courage. He pulled a chair and sat across from her. Then he said the truth that had been hiding behind the strange invitation. "Ada," he said quietly, "I am searching for a wife." Ada blinked twice because she believed she heard wrong. The idea sounded like a joke from a wandering storyteller. She laughed once in disbelief before stopping herself. She said, "Sir, there are many women in your world who would gladly marry you." Mr. Ben shook his head again. He said the women in his world often loved the life he owned, not the man he was. He said he wanted someone who understood struggle and loyalty. He said a woman who could sell comfort for family might also stand firm beside a husband during storms. Ada felt anger rise in her chest. She stood up and looked straight at him. She said, "So you decided to test a poor woman's pain for your marriage search?" Her voice was sharp, like a cutlass. Mr. Ben did not show anger at her words. Instead, he answered calmly that he would still give her the promised money even if she walked away. He said the payment was never a trap. He said he simply wanted to meet the person behind the story he had heard. Ada sat down slowly again. The room became quiet, except for the distant sound of city cars outside. Her mind was now running through many thoughts, like goats escaping a pen. She had come to sell one night for a father's life, not to hear a marriage proposal from a billionaire. She asked him one important question. "Why did you not simply visit the village and meet me like a normal man?" Mr. Ben looked down before answering. He said, "Fame often made simple actions impossible." He explained that when people recognized him, crowds followed quickly. Cameras appeared and stories spread everywhere. If he had walked into her market, the whole country would soon talk about it. He said he needed privacy to learn who she truly was. Ada could not deny that his explanation made sense. Still, she felt uneasy about the strange path that had brought her there. She remembered her father lying weak on the mat at home. The medicine money was now very close. Mr. Ben then asked her gently about Baba Tade. Ada told him the whole story without hiding anything. She spoke about the sickness, the hospital cost, and her fear of losing the only parent she had. Her voice trembled slightly, but she did not cry. Mr. Ben listened with serious attention. When she finished speaking, he nodded slowly. He said the world often tests good people in painful ways. Then he promised that the hospital bill would be paid immediately. Ada's eyes widened with shock. She said quickly, "But we have not finished this night yet." Mr. Ben replied that saving her father did not depend on her decision about him. He said some things should never become business deals. The words touched Ada deeply because she had expected a harder heart from a billionaire. For the first time since entering the hotel, she felt a little peace inside. Yet another problem was now rising. Mr. Ben looked directly at her and spoke again. He said, "Ada, I am not asking you to answer tonight." He said she should return to her village and focus on her father's health. But he also said that if destiny wished it, their lives might cross again. Ada was quiet for a long moment. She felt the strange weight of two different worlds meeting in one room. One world carried wealth, power, and endless opportunity. The other carried family loyalty, struggle, and simple dignity. Finally, she spoke with careful honesty. She said, "Sir, my mind is not a market where decisions are sold quickly." She said she came only to save her father, not to change her life forever. Mr. Ben respected her answer and nodded. They continued talking through the night about life, family, and the meaning of trust. Ada discovered that the billionaire was not arrogant like many powerful men. Mr. Ben discovered that Ada's wisdom came from hardship, not from books. When morning light entered the room, the strange meeting had ended. Mr. Ben arranged a car to take Ada back to her village. Before she left, he placed an envelope in her hands. Inside it was more money than he had promised before. Ada stared at the envelope with confusion. She said softly, "Why give more than we agreed?" Mr. Ben answered with a calm smile. He said a man who has much must sometimes use it to correct the unfair balance of the world. Ada thanked him sincerely and prepared to leave the hotel. Her heart was still full of questions about the strange night, yet her mind was focused on only one urgent hope. She wanted to reach home quickly and save her father, but as Ada's car drove toward the village, another truth was already racing toward her from the opposite direction, because at that same moment, Baba Tade was waking up with terrible news waiting at the door, and the messenger who carried that news was saying something that would shake Ada's world completely. What had happened in the village while Ada was away? The car carrying Ada moved quickly through the early morning road. She held the envelope tightly while thinking about her father waiting at home. Her mind kept returning to the strange night in the hotel. She still could not believe a billionaire had spoken to her like an equal, yet her strongest prayer was simple, that Baba Tade would still be alive when she reached the village. After many hours, the car stopped near the dusty road that led into her village. Ada thanked the driver and stepped down with tired legs. The sun was already rising high, and market women were spreading their goods. Some people looked at her with surprise because they had heard she traveled to the city. Before she reached her house, Saad came running toward her. Her face looked worried and full of fear. Ada felt her heart jump because she knew bad news often travels on fast feet. She grabbed Saad's arm quickly. "What happened?" Ada asked with shaking breath. Saad swallowed hard before speaking. "Your father fainted again during the night," Saad said. "But the nurse is inside with him now." Ada ran toward the house without waiting to hear more. She pushed the door open and saw Baba Tade lying on his mat. The village nurse was checking his weak pulse carefully. Ada dropped beside him and held his hand. "Baba, I am here," she whispered softly. The nurse looked at Ada with serious eyes. She said the sickness was getting worse, faster than expected. Baba Tade needed to reach the Lagos hospital immediately. Ada quickly opened the envelope and showed the money. The nurse's eyes widened with shock. "This is more than enough," she said. Ada felt relief wash through her chest like cool rain after heat. She thanked God silently because the path she feared had saved her father. Within 1 hour they prepared to leave for the city hospital. Saud packed a small bag with clothes and water. Soon a hired car arrived to take them to Lagos. Baba Tade was weak but still conscious. He looked at his daughter with tired love in his eyes. During the long journey he spoke slowly to her. "My child," he said, "what did you do to bring such money?" Ada hesitated because she did not want to cause him pain, but she believed truth should not hide between family members. She explained everything about the rich man and the strange meeting. Baba Tade listened quietly without interrupting her. When she finished speaking, he sighed deeply. His voice carried both sadness and pride. "You walked into danger for me," he said, "but your heart remained clean." Ada held his hand and told him he was worth any sacrifice. She said, "A daughter must sometimes fight the world for her family." Baba Tade nodded slowly, but still looked troubled. After many hours, they finally reached the big hospital in Lagos. Nurses quickly placed Baba Tade on a bed and began medical tests. Ada waited outside the room with fear sitting heavy in her chest. Every minute felt longer than a whole day. At last, a doctor came to speak with her. He was a tall man with calm eyes. He explained that Baba Tade's heart problem was serious but treatable with surgery. "The operation will happen tomorrow morning," the doctor said. Ada thanked him again and again. She knew the money from Mr. Ben had opened this door of hope. That night, she slept on a chair beside her father's hospital bed. Morning came slowly with heavy tension in the air. Nurses rolled Baba Tade toward the operation room while Ida walked beside the bed. Her fingers held his hand until the door closed. Then she waited. Hours passed like slow shadows on the wall. Ada prayed quietly for strength and mercy. She thought about her mother who had died years ago. Finally, the doctor returned with a gentle smile. "The surgery was successful," he said. Ada felt tears rush down her face with great relief. She thanked the doctor and rushed to see her father again. Baba Tade was weak, but breathing peacefully. For the first time in many weeks, hope entered her heart without fear. 3 days later, Baba Tade was strong enough to sit up and talk again. He watched his daughter carefully as she brought him food. Then he spoke with quiet seriousness. "Ada," he said, "the rich man who helped us may appear again." Ada looked surprised. "Why do you say that?" Baba Tade smiled faintly, like a man who had seen many seasons of life. He said destiny often moves in circles that people do not expect. He believed their story with Mr. Ben was not finished. Ada laughed softly, because she thought her father was imagining things. She said rich men lived in a different sky far above village life. Their worlds rarely touched for long. But while she was speaking those words, another event was already beginning in the city. In a tall office building across Lagos, Mr. Ben was watching a news report on television. The reporter was speaking about a powerful business rival who wanted to destroy his company. The rival's name was Chief Kola. Chief Kola was older, ruthless, and very wealthy. He believed Mr. Ben had taken business opportunities that belonged to him. Now he was planning a quiet attack against the young billionaire. Mr. Ben listened carefully while the report continued. Then the screen showed something unexpected. It showed a photo of Ada walking beside her father at the hospital entrance earlier that day. A journalist had captured the moment and turned it into a story about the mysterious village woman seen with billionaire Ben. Mr. Ben stared at the screen with concern. He understood something dangerous immediately. If his enemies believed Ada was important to him, they might try to use her as a weapon. At that same moment, far away in a luxury office, Chief Kola was watching the same news report. A slow smile appeared on his face. "A poor village girl, close to Ben," he murmured quietly. "This may become very useful." And while Ada sat peacefully beside her recovering father, she had no idea that powerful enemies had just noticed her existence. Her sacrifice had saved her father. but it had also pulled her into a dangerous world where rich men fought silent wars. And the next move in that war was already being planned. Would Ada's unexpected connection to Mr. Ben bring her blessing or terrible danger? Ada believed life would finally return to peace after her father's surgery. She stayed beside Baba Tide in the hospital room and helped the nurses whenever she could. Each day he grew stronger, and the color slowly returned to his face. Ada thanked God quietly because she thought the storm had passed. But the elders say when a river becomes calm, it may be hiding deep currents underneath. One afternoon, Baba Tade sat near the window while Ada brought him food. He looked at the busy city street below and spoke slowly. "This city is full of strange stories," he said. Ada smiled and told him she would take him back to the village soon, where life was simple again. Before Baba Tade could answer, a nurse entered the room carrying a small television remote. She said a news report was talking about the hospital and asked if they wished to watch it. Ada agreed without thinking much about it. The screen turned on, and the voice of the reporter filled the room. The reporter spoke about the rising business war between Mr. Ben and Chief Cola. The report said both men controlled huge companies and powerful money networks. Ada listened with small interest at first, because such matters belonged to rich people's world. Then the screen suddenly showed a picture that froze her breath. It was the photo taken outside the hospital earlier that week. The reporter said, "This unidentified woman was seen leaving the hospital with Billionaire Ben recently, raising new questions about the young business leader's private life." Ada's hand trembled as she watched her own face on the screen. Baba Tade noticed her reaction immediately. He turned his eyes toward her with quiet concern. "My daughter," he said slowly, "the world has begun to look at you." Ada felt fear entered her chest like cold wind through an open door. She had never wished to appear in public stories or rich men's problems. She was only a market woman who wanted her father to live. But now her simple life was standing inside a storm she did not understand. The television report continued, speaking about Chief Kola Senga toward Mr. Ben. It said the older businessman had lost many deals to the younger billionaire. Some people believed Chief Kola was searching for ways to weaken his rival. Ada quickly turned the television off. The room became silent, except for the soft sound of hospital machines. She wished the picture had never appeared. At that same time, across the city, Chief Kola sat in his tall office with several men around him. They were studying the same news story carefully. Chief Kola tapped the table slowly with his finger. "So this is the girl," he said quietly. One of his assistants nodded. He explained that reporters believed the girl had a personal connection with Mr. Ben. Chief Kola leaned back in his chair and smiled with cold patience. "A strong man may protect himself well," he said, "but sometimes the people around him are easier doors." Another assistant spoke with caution. "Sir, she looks like a poor village girl. She may know nothing about business matters." Chief Kola waved his hand dismissively. He said innocence did not matter in battles between powerful men. What mattered was influence and pressure. If the girl was close to Mr. Ben, she could become a useful tool. Back in the hospital, Ada helped her father walk slowly along the corridor for exercise. Baba Tade noticed the worry sitting on her face. He spoke gently to calm her heart. "My child," he said, "fear grows stronger when we feed it with silence." Ada nodded and told him everything she was thinking. She explained how the news might attract dangerous attention. She said she wished she had never gone to that hotel meeting. Baba Tayed stopped walking and placed his hand on her shoulder. His voice carried the wisdom of many years. "The road you walked saved my life," he said. "Never regret an act that was born from love." Ada felt tears gather in her eyes. Her father's words reminded her why she made the sacrifice, yet the future now looked uncertain and strange. Later that evening, Ada stepped outside the hospital to breathe fresh air. The city traffic moved loudly around her. She tried to imagine returning to the quiet village market again. Suddenly, a black car stopped near the hospital gate. Two men stepped out and walked toward her slowly. Their clothes looked expensive, but their faces carried hard expressions. One man spoke first. "Are you Ada, daughter of Baba Tade?" he asked calmly. Ada felt caution rise in her chest. She nodded carefully, but kept distance between them. The man smiled slightly, as if he expected that answer. "Our employer would like to speak with you," he said. Ada asked who the employer was. The second man answered without emotion. "Chief Kola." Ada felt a sharp warning inside her mind. She remembered the news report describing the powerful rival of Mr. Ben. Her heart began beating faster. "I do not know this man," she said firmly. The first man shrugged as if the answer did not matter. He said Chief Cola only wanted a friendly conversation. Ada's instincts told her something darker was hiding behind the invitation. "I am busy caring for my sick father," she replied. The men exchanged a quiet look with each other. Then the first man stepped closer and lowered his voice. "Miss Ada, refusing the chief is not always a wise decision." Ada stood her ground despite the fear inside her. "I will not go anywhere with strangers," she said clearly. For a moment the men said nothing. Then they stepped back toward their car. Before entering the vehicle, the second man spoke one last sentence. "The chief will ask again." They sighed calmly. Next time, the invitation may not sound so polite. The car drove away, leaving Ada standing alone near the hospital gate. Her hands were shaking slightly now. She understood that powerful people had begun to move around her life. When she returned to the hospital room, Babatade noticed her troubled face again. Ada told him about the men who had come. Her father listened carefully, without speaking. After a long silence, he said something that made her heart even heavier. "My daughter," he said quietly, "it seems your story with a rich man has truly begun." Ada looked at him with confusion and worry. She asked what they should do next. Babatade thought carefully before answering. "The wise person does not fight a storm alone," he said. Ada understood his meaning immediately. There was only one person who might stand between her family and the dangerous world of Chief Cola. Mr. Ben, but Ada had promised herself she would not enter the billionaire's life again. Now destiny was pushing her back toward that door, and as she stared at the night sky above the hospital, one question troubled her deeply. If she asked Mr. Ben for help, would she be saving her family a gainer, stepping deeper into a battle between powerful men? Ada did not sleep that night in the hospital room. She sat beside Babatade and listened to the quiet sounds of the machines. The words of the two strange men kept moving through her mind. She understood that Chief Cola was not a man who liked to hear no. Babatade noticed her tired eyes as the morning light entered the window. He spoke gently but firmly. "My daughter, hiding from powerful trouble does not always make it disappear." Ada sighed because she knew his words carried truth. She stood and walked slowly to the window. The city outside was already alive with noise and movement. She wished she could return to the small village where problems were simpler, but life had placed her in a different place now. Finally, she turned back toward her father. "Baba," she said quietly, "there's only one person who may understand this danger." Babatade nodded slowly because he already knew the name she was thinking. "Mr. Ben," he said. Ada hesitated before answering. She had promised herself not to enter the billionaire's world again. Yet the men who came to the hospital had already pulled her into that world without asking permission. "If Chief Cola believes I matter to him," Ada said, "then only Mr. Ben can explain the truth." Babatade looked serious as he considered the matter. "Then you must speak with him," he said. "But remember who you are. Rich men's storms should not change the strength of your heart." Ada promised she would remember. Later that afternoon, she used the hospital phone to call the number Mr. Ben had given her before she left the hotel. Her hand felt slightly nervous while she waited for someone to answer. A calm voice finally spoke on the line. "Mr. Ben's office." Ada introduced herself slowly. There was a brief silence before the voice answered again with surprise. The assistant said Mr. Ben had asked to be informed immediately if she ever called. Within minutes, the billionaire himself was speaking to her. "Ada," he said, sounding both relieved and concerned. "I was hoping to hear from you." Ada explained everything that had happened since the news report appeared. She told him about the men from Chief Cola and their warning. Mr. Ben did not interrupt her while she spoke. When she finished, his voice became very serious. "I feared this might happen," he admitted. Ada asked what he meant by that statement. Mr. Ben explained that Chief Cola had a long history of using personal pressure to defeat his rivals. He often targeted family members or close friends. "But I barely know you," Ada said. Mr. Ben sighed quietly. "That truth will not matter to him," he replied. Ada felt frustration rise in her chest. She said she never asked to become part of their business war. She only wanted to save her father. "I know," Mr. Ben answered calmly, "and that is why I must help protect you now." Ada was silent for a moment, because she did not know what help would look like. Mr. Ben spoke again with careful thought. "You and your father cannot stay in that hospital without protection," he said. Ada's heart tightened at the idea of danger reaching the place where her father was recovering. She asked what he suggested. Mr. Ben explained that he owned a secure guest house on the quiet side of Lagos. He said Ada and Baba Tade could stay there until the situation became safer. Ada hesitated because she did not want to depend too heavily on the billionaire, but she also remembered the warning given by Chief Colas' men. "My father's safety comes first," she said finally. Mr. Ben agreed immediately. Within 2 hours, a private car arrived to move them from the hospital. Baba Tade was carefully placed inside with medical support arranged by Mr. Ben's staff. The journey across the city happened quietly, without attracting attention. Soon, they reached the guest house. It was a large but peaceful building surrounded by tall trees and guarded gates. Ada had never seen such a place before. Yet, despite the comfort around her, she still felt uneasy. Mr. Ben arrived later that evening to speak with them in person. He greeted Baba Tade respectfully and asked about his health. The older man thanked him sincerely for saving his life. "A man who helps my daughter is also helping me," Baba Tade sighed. Mr. Ben smiled modestly but then turned serious again. He explained that Chief Colas' power was wide and dangerous. The older businessman believed that fear could force people into mistakes. Ada listened carefully while he spoke. "What does he want from you?" she asked. Mr. Ben answered honestly. "Control." He explained that Chief Cola wanted to dominate certain industries in the country. Mr. Ben's company had become the only strong obstacle standing in his way, so he hopes to weaken you through people around you, Aida said. Mr. Ben nodded. Baba Tade watched the conversation quietly before speaking again. His voice carried calm wisdom. "Two elephants are fighting. A sight slowly, but the grass under their feet suffers the most." Mr. Ben respected the proverb immediately. "That is exactly what I want to prevent," he said. For a moment, the room became silent. Each person was thinking about the road ahead. Then Mr. Ben said something that surprised Ada. "There is another reason I wanted to see you again," he admitted. Ada looked at him with curiosity and caution. Mr. Ben took a breath before continuing. "Ada, when we first met, I told you I was searching for a wife. I meant those words." Ada felt her heart jump slightly because she had hoped that topic would disappear. This was not the time for such discussions. But Mr. Ben continued speaking with sincerity. "I am not asking for an answer now," he said. "Your father's safety is the most important matter." Ada appreciated his respect, yet she could see that destiny was tying their lives together more tightly with every passing day. At that same moment, far across the city, Chief Cola was sitting in his office again. One of his men had just reported that Ada and her father were moved from the hospital into a secure location owned by Mr. Ben. Chief Cola smiled slowly as he heard the news. "So the young billionaire truly cares about the girl," he said quietly. His assistant asked what their next step should be. Chief Cola leaned forward and spoke in a cold voice. "If the girl matters to him, then she will bring him exactly where I want." Back at the guest house, Ada stepped outside onto the quiet balcony. The night air felt heavy with unknown futures. She had only tried to save her father, but now she stood in the middle of a silent war between powerful men. And deep inside her heart, one difficult question was growing stronger. If destiny was truly pushing her toward Mr. Ben's world, would she have the courage to face everything that world might demand from her? Ada stood on the balcony of the guest house long after everyone had gone to sleep. The night was quiet, but her mind was not. She kept thinking about the path that had carried her from a small village market into the world of powerful men. One simple sacrifice for her father had opened a door she never expected. The next morning, Baba Tade was already awake when Ada entered his room. He looked stronger than before and was sitting comfortably in a chair. When he saw her worried face, he spoke gently. "My daughter, trouble does not stay forever," he said. Ada smiled faintly, but did not look fully convinced. She told him about her fears that Chief Cola would continue chasing them. Baba Tade listened quietly before giving his answer. "The world sometimes chooses people for difficult roads," he said. "But those roads also reveal the true strength of a person." Later that afternoon, Mr. Ben returned to the guest house with serious news. His face looked calm, but Ada could see tension in his eyes. He sat with Ada and Babatade in the living room. Chief Cola has made his move, he said. Ada felt her stomach tighten as she waited for him to continue. Mr. Ben explained that Chief Cola had begun spreading false stories about him in the media. The stories claimed he used poor women to hide illegal business deals. Ada realized immediately that the rumors were pointing at her. Her name had not been mentioned yet, but the story was clearly building in that direction. She felt anger rise in her chest. "I never asked to become part of this," she said. Mr. Ben nodded with understanding. "That is exactly why he chose this path," he replied. Baba Todd leaned forward in his chair with serious eyes. "What does Chief Cola hope to gain from these lies?" he asked. Mr. Ben answered honestly. If the rumors spread far enough, his company's reputation could collapse. Investors might lose trust, and business partners might withdraw support. "He wants to weaken my position before attacking my company directly," Mr. Ben explained. Ada stood and began walking slowly across the room. Her thoughts were moving quickly now. She understood something important about Chief Cola's strategy. "He believes I am your weakness," she said. Mr. Ben looked at her carefully. "Yes," he admitted. Ada stopped walking and turned toward him with new determination. "Then, we must show him he is wrong." Both men looked surprised by the firmness in her voice. Mr. Ben asked what she meant. Ada explained her idea clearly. She said the truth about their meeting should not remain hidden. If the public heard the full story, Chief Cola's lies would lose power. Mr. Ben considered the idea carefully. He had avoided speaking publicly about his private life for many years. But Ada's suggestion carried strong logic. "If the truth comes from you directly," she continued, "people will see that you did not use a poor woman for business tricks." Babatade nodded slowly in agreement. "Truth is a sharp knife," he said. "It cuts through lies when used bravely." Mr. Ben looked at Ada with deep respect now. He realized the village woman who had come to his hotel was far stronger than many people in his wealthy world. "Are you ready for the attention that will follow?" he asked. Ada took a deep breath before answering. "I was ready to sell my pride for my father's life," she said. "Facing the truth is not harder than that." The plan moved quickly after that decision. Within 2 days, a public press conference was arranged. Journalists from many news organizations gathered in a large hall to hear Mr. Ben speak. Ada stood quietly beside him as cameras flashed across the room. She wore a simple dress, like the ones she wore in the village. She did not try to look rich or powerful. When the conference began, Mr. Ben spoke first. He told the full story about how he searched for a woman with honesty and courage. He explained that he met Ada because of the sacrifices she made for her father. He also revealed that he paid for Babatade's hospital treatment because he believed compassion should never become a business transaction. Then, Ada stepped forward to speak. Her voice was calm but clear as she faced the journalists. She told them about her father's sickness and her desperate search for money. She explained that she accepted the strange invitation because love for family sometimes demands difficult choices. "I did not meet Mr. Ben as a secret lover," she said firmly. "I met him as a daughter trying to save her father." The room became very quiet while she spoke. Many reporters lowered their cameras because the truth in her voice carried strong emotion. Ada continued, speaking with courage. "Rich people and poor people live in different worlds," she said, "but kindness can still cross those worlds." When the conference ended, the story spread quickly across the country. Many people were touched by Ada's honesty and courage. Instead of believing Chief Cola's rumors, the public began praising the strange friendship between the billionaire and the village woman. Within days, Chief Cola's plan began collapsing. Investors refused to support his attacks, and journalists started questioning his behavior. The older businessman grew angry as his strategy failed. One evening, he sat alone in his office, watching another news report, praising Ada's bravery. His face became dark with frustration. "A poor girl has ruined my plans," he said bitterly. But the battle he started was already ending. Back at the guest house, Ada and Babatade watched the same report together. Babatade smiled proudly at his daughter. "You see now," he said gently, "the road chosen by love can lead to unexpected places." Ada nodded slowly because she understood his meaning. Mr. Ben arrived later that night with good news. Chief Cola's company was now facing legal investigation for dishonest business practices. The powerful rival who tried to destroy him was losing his influence. "The storm is passing," Mr. Ben said. Ada felt a relief. fill her heart for the first time in many weeks. Her father was recovering, and the danger around them was fading. Then Mr. Benz spoke again with a quiet smile. "There is still one question left between us," he said. Ada knew immediately what he meant. The subject of marriage had been waiting silently behind all the chaos. She looked at her father first. Babatai simply nodded with calm trust. Then Ada turned back toward Mr. Ben. "When I first came to your hotel," she said, "I thought I was selling one night to save my father." Mr. Ben listened carefully as she continued. "But that night showed me something else," she said. "It showed me that kindness can change two lives at the same time." Mr. Ben stepped closer, his voice hopeful but gentle. "Ada," he said quietly, "would you walk the future with me?" Ada looked at the man who once seemed like a stranger from another world. Now she saw someone who respected her strength and her family. She smiled softly before answering, "Yes." And so the woman who once sold one night to save her father discovered that destiny had been writing a much larger story. Her sacrifice brought healing to her family. Her courage defeated the lies of powerful enemies. And her unexpected journey proved an old truth that elders often repeat. When love guides a person's choices, even the smallest sacrifice can open the door to a destiny greater than fear.